can't remember the exact stuff. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith and Ken Williams. Our guest this afternoon is Phil Galanis. And the guest also is Candelaria Thompson.
Am I
my girl?
I'm just joking.
Our regular
contributor.
Contributor, as Bayman's would like to say.
Your position is not to question how I refer to you.
No, but I can still go to the fridge for my drink. I don't have to wait to be.
The fridge?
You know, when you're
the guest,
no longer a guest, I could
just
go to
right
your
in the
fridge and get a drink now, right?
Oh, I'm
no?
not comfortable with that. Oh, no. You can go to the bathroom. I don't want you to pee up yourself. You know.
But they can't go in the
I
fridge.
don't even mind if
can't
strangers
go.
come to my house and say, I don't want them coming to my house and saying, can I use the bathroom? Because as I said, I've told you this before, I'm very tempted to say no.
I like the fact that
And
people
to
are
see how
polite
they're
enough
going
to...
No, I want them to say, can you tell me where the bathroom is? I need them to pee in the bathroom.
But what if the person look like they're gonna do something nasty?
Well, whatever. I mean, yeah.
Number
Yeah,
two.
yeah, whatever.
Like I don't want.
Well,
I'd be
that's
like,
even
no,
worse.
you have to go
They have to
home.
leave?
That's even more important that they have
geez.
to go to the place where that's designed for.
How are people comfortable doing number two in people's homes, though?
I don't.
Like I would go in my car and say,
Well,
"Listen, I gotta
it's
go."
not a matter of comfort. I think what is happening is that there's about a little explosion.
I don't care, and I don't want it in my bathroom.
Well, you don't
gotta
want
go
it on your
home.
couch either.
No, you just come
do the
out of the
courtesy
house.
flush.
No.
Anyway, listen.
What you can do with the courtesy, with the smell?
No, but
Ain't no
the
courtesy.
scent goes down with the
No,
flush.
can't vacuum the
decent
smell.
people, I don't know about y'all, decent people have various things in their bathroom,
Oh,
especially
I
the
do.
powder room area.
Right.
I
So
do.
that
Candle, light a
people
match.
who are in there going through that process can light things, spray things.
Some people like to smell it.
Okay.
Well, listen, I
Well,
hope-
that's good for them. But in my case, I'm going with your Febreze,
Your poopery.
your potpourri,
And your wipes.
your candles,
Not
your scented
potpourri,
candles,
poopery.
etc. And then
Very
and
different.
do me a favor. Don't try. I'm saying this to any potential guests that might come to my house. Do yourself a favor. Use these things, because what you cannot do by any means is stay in and try to outlast the smell. Don't do that, please.
You speaking of with authority, it sounds like.
No, I've seen people do it. They
They
just
just
try to
linger.
stay
They
there,
linger.
Yeah.
because they know it's bad. Okay,
And if
so
they
then they
open
try.
the
They
door-
figure if they stay there for like a good hour and a half.
I think
Who does
Yeah.
that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
In
they're
the
people.
bathroom for that
have your
long?
fun. Yeah.
Because then you know what you forced me to do. I got to knock. You okay?
Or
Are you okay in there?
would you, when they come out, would you go in to
No,
see
no,
if
I
it's
don't.
stinks?
No, you sick. I don't have those type of issues. You leave that alone.
Candy,
Okay.
you wouldn't go in? You wouldn't say, hold on, they were there for an
No,
hour.
no,
Let me
again,
see what
no.
it's
Let me
smelling
say
like in
something.
there.
I don't
I
want
want to
any
say
part of
something
that.
to
You
you,
don't want
please.
to follow
No.
You should not.
I know I'm the only one.
You should not
No, you
expose
go and do
yourself
that?
to the general public with all of your little sick.
Oh my God.
In need of therapy
I want
type
to
stuff.
see. I want to see the damage you've inflicted on
There's
my
no
my
seeing. No one
bathroom.
sees
Well, I want to
fumes.
smell
Like-
the level of
Like
the
if they left
damage,
some stuff,
the remnants.
Ken,
remnants.
you see what's happening?
Whew.
These are some sick.
That
people.
is a bit.
There's a lot of sickness.
Candy,
I
Candy.
also happen to know that Candy has sicknesses, but I'm not going to talk about them. Okay? So these are people who they look, on the outside on the surface, they have a little purity looking thing going on, but they're sick. Now, and you just exposed
I know,
yourself.
I know.
Why don't go hang out
And
down by
I'm-
the septic tank? Okay? That's what you into.
And
Okay?
I like scents, but not you take that a
I'm
little.
talking about if someone been there for an hour, you would know
You
if
wanna
it's
see
blew,
what-
if
no,
it's
this
blown
I know
over,
interest.
so you could
You
clean
know what
it
you
up.
should do? Quit
Spray
this
it up.
job, get a job to water search. That's what you're into. With the
Go
pipe
away.
base,
Go manage.
That's me.
call Laura again, the pipe base.
Go manage the duty
Yeah,
pool.
yeah. Anyway,
I know, I
having
know.
said
Y'all
that,
just don't want to admit it.
how was your week? I have to say a belated happy birthday to my wife, Michelle.
Oh, happy
Happy
belated.
birthday.
Yeah, she's older
Oh,
than
she's
me
in
now.
August, baby.
Unless this is another month in the parallel world.
You haven't been here in a while.
I haven't been here in a while. What is she talking about?
What was that one show? When's the birthday? August what?
Yesterday.
13.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. So it's actually the same. My day is the 13th as well, on October. Anyway,
August is a great month.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's
The-
right.
the
You're
best-
born. You're
the best
born
one.
August 2, the 25th. You and Michael
No, I'm
Jackson.
not. No, I'm
What's
not.
your- yeah, what's
So you
your
just
date again?
exposed yourself. It's not the 25th.
What is it?
24th?
No, what?
What is it? What meant Michael Jackson?
Just what is it?
29th.
Who cares about
Oh,
Michael Jackson?
everybody cares. Now, you ain't care with your whack birthday in October.
At least I'm not around
Like in
smelling
a-
septic tanks.
No, that's
Okay?
my bathroom.
So-
That's those septic tanks. Get it right.
You're gonna
Get
go.
it right.
I know how you go. Watch her.
Whack
When she come to the
October.
house, she's going to the yard. She look for that green spot. Anyway, so what? How was your weekend?
Me? What did I do? Boy, I just relaxed and watched some TV and. What did I do?
Well,
That was
obviously
it.
did
Oh, I
nothing.
went to get something to eat. Did some brunch with my friend.
Oh, you
and-
went to get
yeah.
something to eat. Okay.
Yeah, I
that's
got
good.
some brunch and it was good.
Where was that?
At Olives.
Okay. All right.
Had a nice little breakfast. It was really good.
Listen, got to throw out a shout out to the sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
I do it by heart. Kelly's, of course. And we've got Subway.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Insurance Management. We've got Sunshine Insurance, Arawak Homes. We also have Coca-Cola, Wendy's. We have, I want to say, Bristol Cellars, Bristol Wines and Spirits, I should say. I always mess that up. Heineken, of course, Burger King, KFC. Who else we have, Rogan?
Rev?
Rev TV. Yeah, we got them all. And so I think that's it. If we haven't covered all, we'll get them. I'll check the
I don't want
list
to
and
call
that.
the wrong one.
Yeah. The one you like to call, don't call them.
You know, it's
yeah.
two I like to call.
Yeah, well, don't call
Look,
none.
hold
She's
on, but
probably
you might be
wrong on
missing one.
that. What?
Hold on.
That's the one you like to
Okay,
call.
okay,
that
okay.
wrong.
So what about this one?
What is that? No, that's wrong.
Okay,
too.
okay.
Sorry.
See,
Don't
well,
call
there
none.
you go. There you go.
Yeah, you have no memory.
having fun.
Your memory probably gone from all that smelling you do. So anyway, we'll check the list. If we missed it, some they'll get special attention.
Where you been?
And of course,
Well,
Kelly's have had to do. I had to go do some work. So Kelly's is doing their back to school thing, so that's popular for everyone. So.
Lord, people already started going.
It's August.
It's crazy.
And if you go to Florida, where I was in Florida, the Lauderdale, and coming back, man, only about 3 tourists.
A lot of
Everyone coming from that shopping. Sunday. No, that was Saturday.
You came back
night.
Saturday?
And let me tell you how people think. This is to show you how the sheep think, right? So I came back, and the returning residence line.
Yeah.
I've never seen it like that. A line, like by the bathroom almost.
Really?
Right.
Nobody's using the kiosk?
The tourist line? No one. Guess where Eddie went? The tourist line.
How you get
There's
there?
no rule that says I can't go on
So
that
what
line.
did they say?
Nothing. They just stopped my passport and they went through.
Oh.
You don't go on the tourist line because it's usually the crowded line.
Right.
But if the
Yeah.
other people then came on the line too. But
Yeah.
that's me. I'm the face buffet on the guy.
Boy, let me tell you something. I've been enjoying these couple of months without all this like traffic from like school. I don't know how I'm going to function now when the end of August rolls around. Gandhi, you're going to be right in the thick of that
Oh, yep.
with your
Back to
kids.
school.
I hate that time, man.
I feel that
Hate
it
it.
is probably the single most contributor to the national anger, miserableness. Okay?
Back to school.
Because just
school.
knowing you have to do that
That give me a
for
headache.
months has to piss you off.
Let me tell you, as soon as you see August 1st,
It's
the
a wrap
decline.
now.
I mean, school is right there.
I'm glad
It's,
I
It goes
so,
by like that.
So now, if I planted despair into your mind
What's that?
by knowing that you have to do that,
Say planted despair into your mind. You've gone deep with that. She just ain't want to do
wake up
it.
every morning
You don't want
thinking
planted despair.
about it.
you're
When
now
you-
thinking, oh no,
She
in
just
2
doesn't
weeks'
wanna
time.
do
Oh
it.
no, I've been counting down from the
yeah?
from August 1st. I tell you.
Lots of continual movement in the. We'll talk with our guest Phil Delanis about it in the political sphere. I saw the thing. For instance, I'm going to get political on this one. I saw a thing now about the job rate going down. What's so funny? Well, I'm getting political about it because it's funny. You recall us having a discussion. We were here about when the Progressive Liberal Party was accused of hiring 6,500 people right before election, and then there was a big. No, we didn't. Remember that?
But now
See,
they're
I'm
taking
just.
credit. Yeah.
So I'm trying
Tied
to
in.
reconcile, right? So now it's an employment dip,
They
which
take
we
credit
know
for
has
it.
been a lot of because of public service hire. But yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
But no, you didn't because you said no. You didn't hire 6,500.
Right.
What? As a citizen person, right? Who maybe reads a little bit more than maybe some other people, and that ain't much because I don't read.
You
Okay.
sure don't.
How do you explain that to me? Do you think that I'm not stupid? That in 1 month, what is it, May, say 12th, there was some when was the election? May 10th?
May 10th.
Yeah, but the 12th. I say like a couple days afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was an accusations that you hired 6,500 people. It was an House Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
No, we did not do that. But because remember the discussion? Are these missing people? Because either they did or they didn't.
Yep.
Or you're lying that you said they did. But no problem. We let it slide. Now there's a dip in unemployment, which I'm sure tracks back right before May or right after May.
And the hands in the air.
We're the ones responsible for turning that around. Well,
Mm-hmm.
where did these people come from? You know, so I just find it, and you know, what's that? Go ahead.
I just laughing at what it said, because obviously they were quoting Bradley Roberts, and Mr. Roberts said the employment numbers show that 39,505 jobs were added to the economy between May 2012 and May 2017. 7,770 of which were added in the last 6 months of the Christie administration.
No, but we didn't do that.
But we didn't do that.
Okay, so I just, I am tired. I'm getting serious now. I'm tired of. I'm talking about parties generally because it happened under the FNM as well, of taking us for complete idiots that they could say anything. It's if like they're talking to each other, and we're not getting, we're not hearing it, we're not noticing it. They're just like rowing each other, like in school. No, you ain't say that, buddy. I say that, buddy. Yeah. Okay, don't take us for fools.
Yeah.
I'm
looking forward to hearing what Mr. Galanis has to say on
that. So that is going to be interesting. So that's one thing I saw in the paper. That was Saturday. That was also in the paper this morning, I guess. Yeah. So it was a repeat of that. Yeah. The first thing was the announcement on Saturday, and then it's like the Trumpster. He never believed that the figures were true. You remember that? You remember that? The unemployment figures when Barack Obama, when the figures were going down. Oh, no, they're fake. Now,
because he's in.
The same people giving the figures, but all of a sudden they tell it on us. Why do they think that the general public are just idiots?
Oh, but plenty of people in the general public believe that.
Yeah.
Because they want to believe it because they've got other emotional agendas. It's like you would.
Yeah, people would just take the politics out of it and just, look at the facts.
When we come back, before we talk to Candy, we'll have to talk about the Trumpster and the Charlottesville thing. Because this is some serious stuff, man. We'll be right back. Ed Fields live here. Ed Fields here with Rogan Smith and Ken Laird. I understand you had a great show on Thursday to do the positive charge. Is that correct? I wasn't here, so I wasn't able to do it. Oh, listen. What's that?
We were laughing at the acronym.
Okay.
Because he likes acronyms.
Yeah.
You won't forget
what's that?
DIC.BS.
I'm gonna have to remember that one. I can write that down. Now, listen. Just before we go into Candy, we have to talk about the neo-Nazi Trump. And there's a video I got to send y'all that's going around that's kind of like superimposed with Trump statements and showing how he was referring to, like, in years gone by, we would take him out here on a stretcher and it would show like a civil rights person.
Yeah, being taken on a stretcher. No, but I could see them putting that together.
And we would punch him in the face, and it shows all of these things would happen, right?
Send that to me.
There's no doubt in my mind. Let me say it now. I'm a little concerned because I don't want my visa to take it away. I have to always gear about your visa because your boy far-reaching now. He don't play. He'll stop your visa. Okay. He'll do something like, we're banning all tall Bahamians. Something like that, just to narrow it down. But there's no doubt in my mind. And when you look at the history of when he talked about his father with the housing and all that, he's a racist. Let's face it. Because for anyone, even I think a racist who is president of the United States, who knows what has to be said, would make a statement, wink, wink, that he is disavowing them. He might have a little signal to the people to say, well, I got to say this so the state power so I can continue to be racist with y'all. You know what I mean? Like if you and I were racists, and I'm in the top job on the planet, and the chances of me of not disavowing you as the non-president racist, of me saying, listen, Rogan, when I talking, I can do a signal. It can be like, hello. Like if you see me doing like hello in the middle, then I'm talking to you. No, I disavow the white supremacy.
And he always uses that word.
Okay.
It's so weak.
So, do a little signal. Someone need to coach you to do a little signal, but you got to come out hard because now everyone is like, come on, Don, Orrin Hatch.
And he had, it was like 48 hours before he really came out and responded, because he was talking about how they're wrong on both sides. Both sides are wrong. Rather than putting
one
the blame
person
squarely on
rammed a
his
car
foot
into people.
and killed a woman.
When the people in France was ramming a truck and the people in London, you ain't talking about no both sides.
No. But this is his core. This is his
Because there's
base.
both sides in that one too, by the way.
This is his base. He's not going to do anything. But you remember when he was on the campaign trail and David Duke came out saying he supported him and all that stuff?
Yeah,
People
David
were
said this time too.
yeah, and of course he loves him. And everybody was trying to get him to disavow. He's like, I disavow. It's just so weak.
Y'all want me to say disavow? I can't disavow.
Okay, here it is. I disavow. It's just very weak. No substance
I'm carrying
behind
around
it.
sound disavow, okay?
But let me say, it was so tragic what happened in Virginia, right? But let me just say what somebody
By
said
the way, you know the
online.
brother named Fields, eh?
Yeah, I know. Boy, when I saw that, I said, look at your brother.
No,
I immediately
look at
thought about you.
Yeah, look at my brother.
Yeah.
Right.
You're all fields related. But listen to
Just
what.
like all Smiths.
Yeah, all of us related.
Yeah. I'm sure some serial killer Smiths in there. Go on.
So,
Not
listen.
to mention sellers of smellers of septic tanks.
So someone said, well, I don't know what people expect to happen. The left have made whites their punching bag ever since Obama came into power. They've been trashing whites forever, and now they're retaliating. Nobody, especially not Trump, caused this but the left. Stop whining and reap your rewards, you bleep, bleep, bleep. You know what I mean? And that's the way they feel. They feel as if they've been very marginalized over the years, and now that they have their boy in office, it's time to take the country back.
But see, and I get that because
And
it
I do
happens on both
understand.
sides. That does happen on both sides. Everyone, listen, I was explaining to someone today on the weekend. And why America exists the way it exists is because of one single reason. America is the only country on the planet that has any level of diversity that you see in America. Most countries on the planet have the same people in the country.
Look at our country.
Okay, if you go to Sweden, it's all Swedes. If you go to England, well, England is another
It's
one.
starting to
England
get
is
like a
another
melting
example,
pot.
right? So wherever you see this silly
Canada's a
term
melting
melting
pot.
pot, wherever you see diversity, you will have problems. Simple as that. It's tribal. We have tribalism here. We PLP, FNM. Okay,
Political
male,
tribalism.
female, Haitian, non-Bahamian. I mean, Bahamian, Haitian. This is how human beings react to difference. That's the way it is.
It's no different.
So
here.
no different. It's just how you describe it. Whether if it's black and white, it's racism. If it's women and men, it's sexism. If it's like I got to tell y'all something my daughter said,
Xenophobia.
man. I was watching America's Got Talent, and they had a transgender judge.
You're watching what?
America's Got Talent.
Okay.
And they had a transgender judge. I forget her name. Some woman who does.
Is she
I was
black?
on TV. A black woman. Yeah.
Curly hair?
No, it was straight. I don't know. So anyway, I said to her, boy, you think we can handle that here? Transgender. And my daughter, in her very Edwardian, witty way, said, we don't even do women here.
Exactly. Point taken.
Okay.
Very good point.
All right.
Very good point. Very good
All right.
point.
We haven't gotten to the stage of
You can
accepting
accept this
women.
Women.
With women's rights. So
We certainly
transgender,
want
come
trans
on.
women, yeah.
That's the T. We didn't even get to A yet. So this is how human beings are. Okay? When you want to see peace and harmony, go to somewhere where everyone is the same. And even then they're going to find, he's
some-
Catholic. He's
Yeah,
this.
You're always going to look for differences.
Okay? So it is that the way it is. And when people feel threatened, when they feel that their clan is being threatened,
Yeah.
they react.
I see that a lot even here. Like you let a group of Haitians go and celebrate, what Flag Day or whatever. The first thing people Bahamians would say, oh, they come here trying to take over. They come here trying to take over.
What's going on?
Rather than just letting that group of people just celebrate what is important to them and
But
just
yet we go
respecting
anywhere we
it.
want to cook up that peas and
We
rice.
want cook up peas and rice. We go to Florida.
we show our flags where, it's
I don't have I mean, how could you have a problem with someone showing pride?
Exactly.
Someone said to me one time, well, if they have so much pride, they need to go back to their country.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
really? You sound so silly right now.
See where we are.
Flying from my, my apartment
When you were away.
when I was in college.
Where we are is
White people-
you want to talk about marginalization
It's
of
silly.
people, right? I tell people this all the time. We don't even have, although we may have now, and I'm just not aware, so pardon my ignorance, but they certainly should be much more aware. We've
What's
talked
that?
about this before. Haitian restaurants
Yeah.
with Haitian foods.
Yeah,
I don't know what
they have-
I'm going to
they
be
have
honest
some.
with you. I'm telling you, I don't know what a Haitian dish is.
Native dish.
Now tell me how it is that we live in a country, right, where you have
We have
a
a high
very
Haitian
high Haitian population. We know what Chinese food is.
We know Indian.
We know Indian food. We know
Italian.
British food, Italian, Irish. We got all the foods. But I don't know what a Haitian dish is because they had to be undercover. Because that's how deep we go with our racism or our prejudice. So, I'm not in any way defending Trump because when you recognize this, you need to decry it. But this is a problem of cultural mixing. Okay, you get this type of reaction. Anyway, what you have to hope for though is that the people like the Orrin Hatches and the people that you see who are hardcore Republicans who are saying, okay, you know what, draw that line right there.
Yeah.
That's some evil stuff. See, because you can even be, I don't like you. I don't like you.
Yeah.
I don't like you people. But you can't hurt me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't have to hang with you.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
You don't have to hang with me.
You reserve that right. That is your right.
What you can't do is prevent me from getting a job, prevent me from getting a bank loan. You can't do those things to
Persecute me in any way, shape, or form.
So that's where the line has to be drawn in there.
Yeah.
So let's just hope
Trump
some
is a
things.
special case boy.
He's a special case. And speaking of special,
I don't know how that's speaking of special. He clearly doesn't specialize in segues. Now, if I had said something like, he's sweet, then it would go.
Hey, Rogan, you need some headphones.
let her do her thing, man. Let her do her thing.
What are you doing
She's
to
doing
dance?
background.
It wasn't playing.
Kendi,
Hi.
how are you?
I haven't seen you for a long time.
No.
No. I've been gone.
Yes.
What's that?
No, I'm making faces at her.
Oh.
Me? What'd I do?
Yeah, you making faces at me. I make your face back.
No, I was scratching my nose
Yeah, now
without
you're
scratching
lying.
my
on
nose.
it. Now you're lying.
I swear I was doing like that.
Okay. Keep doing that.
Because my nose is scratching.
Do that all day. Do that
My
all
nose is
day.
itching.
All right.
Me? Yeah, no. I haven't seen you for a bit.
That's right.
That's good. You're looking good.
Thank you. See, now she's making sounds. She's gone from faces to sounds.
Oh,
Was
Lord.
your mouth bothering you? Is your mouth bothering you?
Well, but I'm back.
Yes, and what are you doing? You gone camo?
I
don't
know,
see
right?
you.
This-
I don't see you. I don't see the lower part of your body.
No.
Because I'm camouflaged
Because it's
very well.
camouflage, yeah.
Exactly. See? I blend right into
Yeah.
the panel on this
I
thing
know
here.
this cami.
What's wrong with my cami?
I love it.
I love
Look how
it.
you work for the RBDF.
So,
I'm missing the
you mean
top.
the ribbit?
Ribbit. Yeah, ribbit. So yes,
What's the issue now?
last week I was here, Ed. We were
Yes.
talking about the dating scene, and I think I was so intrigued by the whole, dating scene now. Like, I've been out the dating scene long time.
Never to go back.
No, but because I know you had talked about something to do with
Oh, the stealth thing.
the stealth thing, because that's a dating type of thing, like people who they whatever. And then I talked about ghosting. I'm bringing you up to date
Okay.
in case you weren't.
Well, when did you talk about ghosting? This was on
Last
Thursday?
week.
Okay.
Last
She
week.
was co-hosting with
Oh,
me.
okay.
Right.
And what's ghosting?
Well,
Is that
ghosting.
like ghost move?
No. It's just basically people starting out having dating, not for any long periods of time, and then someone just completely drops off, never to be heard from again.
Oh, they
And
were
you
murdered?
wonder, and then the other person wonders why, like, well, what happened? What I do? What did you say?
You're not his fool. Were they murdered?
Oh,
they were murdered?
No.
Okay.
No, they were not.
They just drop on
They
the side?
just drop. They just.
You can do that in the Bahamas?
Well, that's what Kendrick said. It's like,
Kendrick, you
and
gotta allow
somebody messaged me too.
Kendrick, give me 5 minutes.
No,
Kendrick said the same thing the last time.
somebody actually messaged me that too and said, that
That's
can't
not possible.
happen in
you
the
can't have
Bahamas.
no ghosts in the Bahamas.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah?
Yeah, you can.
Well, that's a deep ghost.
Yeah, you can.
He probably up on camo.
I just got a visual of the ghost when I camouflage hat.
And they walk right straight past the
Yeah,
end.
just-
So silly. Oh my god.
But so anyway, I mean, I just think it's so interesting, all these things that come up that we call, during the whole dating scene. And we don't talk much about dating. We always talk about people who are married and in long-term relationships. And I kind of feel like we leave out people who are not even at that stage
Can I
yet.
interrupt you for 1 second?
You always do.
As Rogan was laughing, she also did something that Bahamians do a lot that I never see.
Oh, clap.
No.
What? Hit a leg?
Hey. After that,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just moving on now. Yes, hey.
Like she got to catch herself. Like, wait.
I just said miss
I
that
don't
one.
remember doing that. That's funny.
So you know,
Definitely real good.
But I just wanted. This is just a discussion. Like
Okay.
I think dating, the whole dating scene has taken on a whole new face with these millennials, and I find it very intriguing how the dating scene is now. I know for me, like back, we really we couldn't date. And I mean, my parents, that's even worse. The minute you start talking to a boy, that's your husband.
What?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying not to be in touch at all with any of the things they're
Well,
doing.
see, I have to be in touch.
You got kids.
I have
gotta.
kids too. But I
No,
figured
but I'm saying, what
I'll
I'm
never
saying
know.
is,
You have kids.
My
I
parents
know,
didn't have a clue what was going on with me.
I know, but even worse, yes. But for me as a parent, we are more aware of what's going on, I think, with our kids.
You think you
in
are?
the sense, yes, man.
Okay.
Because I think so.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I have a 20-year-old and then I have a 10-year-old daughter. So it's very interesting to see
The
the
dynamic.
dating scene now with the 20-year-old, and then 10 years from now, how it's going to be with my 10-year-old.
But you
and
don't
my
know.
son
See,
who's-
let me tell you what you don't know.
We got to take a break though for news.
Okay.
So hold that
All right,
thought.
and we'll be back. Because you know what you don't know?
What don't
Once
I
they
know?
leave that house, you ain't know nothing.
No, I understand
Oh.
that. Well, it all depends on the relationship you have too with
And you're
your
bouncing.
Yeah, the relationship.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
community. Yes,
The
way you
relationship
talk.
part where they tell you this is the relationship section I telling you about. The non-relationship section, I tell you nothing about that. We'll be right back.
Watch her move. That was a cool move. There. I like that. No.
That is not a.
We were cool.
That
End
was
of
pretty
discussion.
Cool. That was pretty cool.
And that's how you know you're cool. When you say we were cool, that's it. Hi. Ed Fields here along with Rogan
wasn't bad.
Smith.
Let me not
What?
do that. No.
With Rogan Smith and a person I can't even see. I don't know where they are. Candy the camo. But
First of all, the thing that he's seeing is a black shirt, not even the cami pants.
I can't see anything. So it's like people who wear dark shades. I like that. They think they're camo, you know.
I know, that was me.
I can see you, but you can't see me because you have on dark shades.
I know, I'm one of those people.
The worst one was, and we're going to get back to the thing, is this fellow who was a fraud. He was a fraudulent guy. And he, after doing some fraud stuff, he came and saw me a couple years later. And he had dyed his hair like blonde. And then he asked me, like, if I could recommend him for a job. And I had to say to him, like, so, Rob, you think because of the blonde hair, I don't recognize you? You know, this is crazy. Anyway, hey, Ken, what's happening?
I can't catch myself.
Oy.
Oy.
But so we were talking about the dating and all that kind of stuff. I think that we fool ourselves, and I'm trying to get past this in my mind. I'm trying to really get into another world than most folks, right? Look at you're gone. Because of the dye? The dye here?
No, because of the camo.
The camo you saw in the camo?
Because you said you can't
shades?
see a person you can't see.
And that's
Okay,
Kay.
I get it.
You know what she needs to
Recap,
do? Let her
recap.
do it, oi, to get herself.
Okay. Keep
Okay,
going.
you
Keep
good?
going.
You good? Okay. I think that y'all are wrong. I think that people, as generations have gone by, have become less and less conservative. Not to say that there weren't some freaks out there.
They were in the
Rogie
minority,
was
like-
definitely in that group. Okay? But they were the minority.
Do not play with me.
You know that she was in the minority of anything that people was doing at the
What
time.
were we wrong
As
about?
I was as well.
I totally disagree with
What
him.
were we- what
He
were we
saying-
wrong about? I don't-
He talking
No, we
about
just
the
talked, we
majority
just
of
said-
people were
I
conservative back
think so,
then
yeah.
versus now.
Mm.
I
Churches used to be packed.
packed with heathens.
With what?
Church heathens.
Heathens.
Church
I
is
haven't
for the
heard that word in a
broken.
while.
Church is for
All
the
right.
broken.
So they know heathens no
I
more?
wouldn't say we
No,
were
they're still
more or
heathens.
less conservative. We
I
were
don't agree
more
with that.
controlled.
Now?
I think we were.
Then.
It was
then.
more covert.
Yes.
Controlled, yeah.
We were controlled.
Yeah, yeah.
It-
But that control had a lot to do with how you acted out as well.
Right, but a lot of things could have been suppressed too.
Yeah, well, suppression would have been,
Right.
it's controlled, right?
Exactly.
It isn't that you didn't want to do it.
Exactly.
So maybe I would agree with you there that the thought process was there.
The thought process was there. I mean, no doubt. We're not inventing how we think.
That's my thing. When people say, "Oh, these kids are doing way more nasty stuff now," I always say, I don't think
stuff?
ain't nothing
Can you do
new
me a
under
favor,
the sun.
please, before we go
Not at
further?
There's
all.
nothing
Can
new
you
under the
write me the
sun.
list
Nasty
of the
stuff.
nasty
You know the
stuff?
nasty stuff.
I'm going to start on one.
But listen to me.
One. What
I
is number-
feel like I feel like people were doing these things way back then, but they were just being a little bit more covert with it because
Yeah.
A little bit more.
way
They probably
more,
were going to
way
case.
more,
Yeah,
way more. I was trying to be nice, but I think people have been doing a lot of the same stuff that they're doing today. If they're honest, they'll say, "Boy, I was freaky back then," but people just hit it because
Hit it, yeah.
you know because societal pressures. Hit it, no,
Hit.
not hit it.
Okay.
But I also
Oh,
think,
hid.
yeah.
Hit
Oh, I thought you
HID.
say hit it.
No,
Okay.
hit it.
Sounds like a good song.
But and also what I see, which is kind of, I don't want to use the word refreshing, but interesting to see these, younger set of people where, you could have a boyfriend, right? You could have a boyfriend, but, and I know we never used to do this, when I was coming up, but you can have a boyfriend, but once you have the boyfriend, you're not going to the movies with another guy. You're not going to to dinner with another guy who is your friend.
Back then?
Who is your friend? I mean, it's nothing more than that, but this is just your friend from whatever, from high school or whatever it is. No, that boyfriend, he'll have a problem with that. Or
I think
she,
they have a
the
problem with it
girlfriend,
now.
will have a. I don't think they not
Yeah,
as
it's
much
called
as we
murdering
did.
people.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm talking about.
I'm saying you're telling me that today they don't have a problem if you have a girlfriend. If Kendrick and
A
you
lot
going
of those
out.
people that you're talking about, I think, Ed, they're a certain age group. These are not like 19-year-olds that are murdering for over a woman.
Yes, babe.
Not the majority of them.
Listen,
Are
before
we
we go
talking
any
about?
further.
I'm talking. They would be in the minority then.
Well, I'm telling you right now that a lot of things that you see happening, and you can confirm this with Reese Brown. Don't blame me. Don't. And it sounds very narrow, but the police will tell you that a lot of things that are happening now are due to interpersonal relationship issues, and not just me and you can't talk. Oh, was you talking to my woman? A lot of stuff is going down. A lot of crime is going down because
I can't
okay?
speak to those numbers.
Right. So it's high. No,
thought
it's
they
high.
were at least 25 and over.
Well, no. I mean, because people can't express themselves, right? See, if you have a situation where...
But we talking about a
people,
specific set of people, though.
I'm just telling you that right now you will see that there are people who are...
sensible.
No, but see, I don't want to generalize because there are people who are, around the States, all other places. Relationships cause angst. And if people can't react, they can't deal with it emotionally, violence can can be the result.
But that's not the majority, though, Ed.
Well,
That's
I think
not the
it's more
majority.
so than you're saying now. I mean, when we were kids, no one was killing each other over that type of action. Very rare. The murder count was rare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, period. I mean, that's just statistically correct.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're seeing a lot of these things, obviously, because, they have guns. There's guns available as opposed to people who get in a fight. But there was always fights.
Yeah.
So you
over
don't
this
you
stuff.
don't you don't see dating becoming less or people becoming less possessive as
I
opposed
think
to
there is more openness. I think people will say, okay,
I'd agree.
I don't want to be exclusive. Whereas maybe that to your point, right? Whereas they may not have uttered that before.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's not a big group of people who's saying that.
Who's saying I don't want to be exclusive?
Right.
I
could be wrong on
think
that.
a lot of people are saying they want to date, and I think in the past date meant I'm with you and only you, and now date means
Okay.
I'm with different people. I'm
okay,
trying to see what I like.
Like you as my boyfriend don't mean nothing now.
I wouldn't
Well,
call you
you're
my
not a boyfriend now,
boyfriend
you're
because
just
you're just dating.
right.
That's okay.
Right. So women especially are now
Multiple.
they're not being controlled by the older
Yeah,
norms.
societal norms are kind of falling by the wayside
Right.
now.
That's a lot of
And
pressure
they're not
though,
going
because
to
you know
hide
what?
it.
No matter what they say, at the end of the day, you're dealing with human emotions, right?
Right.
So you could say, "Oh yeah,
Yeah, I cool with it.
yeah, Yeah. And then you pull up around, you on the hot dog line at the movie, you see Skillo with your gal.
Skillo, you like this name, boy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, you Skrille.
Skillo.
I know,
Skillo.
but I thought you
So
said
then you
that
move
before.
on. So when that happens,
So
and
you
you see
feel
that
a little
he,
feeling.
so when he feels more than you do,
Mm-hmm.
or she feels more than you do, then you say, listen, obviously you can't handle this, and so we're gonna have to separate. So you can continue dating other
You
people.
know, for us, I think for us in this room, it is very hard for us to grasp these millennials and what are going on with them.
Yeah, for me to grasp.
I
can see it.
No, what I'm saying is
What is how you say
because
that?
we come from different
polyamory and a
polyamory
polyamorous
and
relationship.
polyamorous yeah.
Yeah. That's a thing
Yeah,
now.
that's
Hold
I've
on now.
been-
She's
I've been a
on.
thing.
She's on with Tree.
Yeah, but I'm not necessarily talking
But
about that
polyamorous
though. Right.
relationships, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not talking about having multiple relationships.
Just
But
I want
I
to
just
be able to
think
go to
we
movies with
cannot
this one. I want to go to the
understand,
show
right.
with that one.
And it not be an issue.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we can
Well,
we
had
can
that.
understand
We call
no
it friendships. I
I
mean,
can
listen,
handle that.
people. Well, you had multiple
Oh,
friends. You
huh?
had multiple friends, but when you said dating, even in my when you
mean
said dating, when I mean, I think that has a connotation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Rogan and I are dating. I think it still means the same today as it means back then. You don't think so?
Oh, well, I didn't say that it didn't.
Okay, all right.
I'm saying, you know, like back in the day, you know, your mommy'd be like, well, child, you with this one, don't let, you know, people see you with any and everybody.
Really? Oh,
Or you can't go out if you're with this one, be with this one. You don't have to go out with Paul, Joe, and Jack.
I wasn't dating until I was in my 20s, so that wasn't even wasn't even a discussion
now, even
for me.
that.
Yeah.
Even that is different too, eh?
No, man, you still have people who ain't dating until later on. I mean, listen, the reality is you have young folks who are doing crazy stuff, or they just want to live their lives how they see it, but you still have people who are holding on to those traditional values. I see that every day. I know a woman who is in her 30s, and she's a virgin. And she's serious, she
Yeah,
ain't.
but we ain't talking about the people in the 30s.
Okay.
Okay, so what age? Give me an age.
I'm literally talking about like.
I have a relative who
Young.
is 22. Is that young enough?
Yeah, that's
And
like
she
in
says
that range.
And
Yeah.
she says she has no intentions of having sex until she's married. She dates. And one boy dumped her because he wanted more. And she said, no, you got to go. So she's 22.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it might not be, I can't say what is the norm or what
I
is.
mean, that could be from.
I don't know.
Well, obviously, that's from her upbringing as well. I would
but
like to
by
know
the
what
way,
that
there's
background
probably
is.
more pressure today than it. I mean, I don't know if this is reconciling what you're saying, but there's probably more pressure today to have sex than in the past, because even though everyone wanted to have it, you know, and I'm generalizing here now, right? That was such a like, you know, that I think more women held on to that than they do now. I think today it's not a big deal.
It's like nothing.
It's not a big deal now. You know, I mean, okay, you know, we hook up, you know, you know, but the thing.
I know we got to go, but can I ask a question? Should it be a big deal?
No, well,
I don't think so.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, like,
Listen.
Well,
we make
no,
a big
it's
deal.
been a big deal for women.
We make a big,
not a big deal
yeah, you're
for
right.
men.
You're absolutely right, Candy.
No,
So,
here's the situation.
we make a big deal out of something that is
I
natural.
said this to
Right.
someone the other day. I say it all the time. I've never strayed from this. We have to accept that human beings have destroyed and mutated everything.
Yeah.
As soon as we accept that, then we realize how off base we are. How can you
Agreed.
go from, say, 100 years ago to we're getting married at 14 or 15, i.e. when you had puberty and you were childbearing years and you want to make sure you had children before you get yellow fever, okay? How do you go from there to it's illegal,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay?
Right.
You go from, and I'm not...
And frowned
you go
upon.
See, I'm not talking about rape. So move
Right.
out, all the people get that out of the way.
Right.
I'm talking about when a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old decide consensually to have sex. Why?
Yeah.
Body popping, everything
Yeah, the
moving. Oh,
hormones are
yeah.
crazy.
Okay? And then all of a sudden now, that's a crime.
Yeah.
Whereas 100 years ago, we go into the bed.
And who determines that this is the age when you
church.
can give consent?
It's
this
the
is
church.
crazy to
I
me.
know, but this is what
This
I've
is
been
crazy.
saying over and over and over again. We do it on everything. We do it on drugs.
It's-
We do it on drinking, and then we switch it around. In 1930, 40 something, drinking was illegal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Go to jail.
Bootleg and all
Now
that.
we got branches. So the thing is, it's crazy.
Get branches.
Okay.
And sponsors.
Yeah.
And sponsors.
Yeah. So it's how does it make sense?
We
And this is the part that I find insidious. and you wonder why we have such anger and such problems. And this is what, if there's one thing that I want folks to hear this, and just keep it in your mind. Do not focus on the decriminalization of things. Don't focus on that. Think about your child, your brother, your sister being criminalized because of it.
Because of something.
They are criminal now because they're doing something.
Yeah.
Come on, let's move off of that.
Yeah.
Criminalization is when someone thief, when someone kill, that's criminal.
Rape.
Not when someone have a little jungalanga.
With someone 2 years younger than them and they're in high school and the hormones are raging.
Okay.
Look at the movie.
Do we promote it? No, I don't promote
goodness.
it. But it shouldn't be criminalization.
What's the movie with Brookfield? Brookfield.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Brooke Shields.
Blue Lagoon.
Yeah.
Blue Lagoon.
But you track back to your great grandparents.
Oh, my Grammy was married like 16 or 15.
There's done her on
And she had plenty children.
one child, 2 children by then. Okay, that's when you see, and they talk about religion, and if you track the Bible, that's when they were getting married, and you talk about religion. God theoretically made you this way. He didn't go. I'm going to leave you with this. There's a cartoon I saw in Hustler magazine, because I don't read those type of things. Someone gave
Yeah, you do.
Someone sent it to me.
Was that Larry Flynn?
And this was when I was like 17. It was probably illegal. So the thing is, it had 4 cells, the boxes, right? And the first cell was, bang, God created man. And the second cell, God comes back and goes, oops, I forgot to do something, and he gives man a penis. And in the third cell, Adam says, what's this for? And God says, you'll find out. In the fourth cell, it's 5 cells. Adam's in the bush with a big smile, in the bush. 5th cell, God comes along and says, oh, I forgot to tell you, you're not allowed to use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, let's move on.
Yeah.
All right, listen, Candy.
Yes.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
You won plenty today.
Yeah, man.
I know.
Listen, make sure when you go outside, flash something so the cars don't knock you down, because they probably wouldn't see you because you're on the camo. Okay?
You can run out there.
Run right out.
You have a camouflage from head to toe.
Head to toe. Like you can't see this bright smile.
They'll knock you on your leg. I see your leg.
Thank you all so
right,
very much.
Take
See
care.
you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Candy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with our co-host Rogan Smith, and Kendrick Williams is our board. And fortunately, I'm glad that Kendrick is here, because more and more he and I are siding with each other on things, because we see things a certain way. Anyway, our guest this afternoon is Phil Galanis. He's been with us many times, and of course, columnist in the National Guardian. Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem.
Good to be here.
I'm sure you'll be on a lot more. There's a lot. The thing is, these are times, Rogan Smith, when there's fodder. One of the things, we made a decision when we were doing the show. We had some conscious decisions about this show, was that we were not trying to be topical, because then you got to try to find a guest for that topic. Yeah. We wanted to just have discussions on things, but from time to time, the coincidences of like when we had Mr. Roberts on,
I know.
That time it was like the day that the thing happened with Mr. Fitzgerald. So it's just coincidences.
I know.
But like you see in the United States, I don't think you could have a talk show in the United States of America and not talk about Donald Trump, because it's just constant. And then nowadays in the Bahamas, of course, it is literally impossible to not talk about politics, especially, if we have the deposit insurance people on, we don't have to talk about it. But if you have a political being such as yourself on, then it would be impossible not to talk about this stuff. And I think the only way that we're going to mature, Phil, is obviously for folks like ourselves to just talk about it in the open and move on. We were talking about, and this is more of a principle than a focus on the specific. The way that we as the electorate are treated as idiots, okay, as if we don't see things, that we don't read, that we don't correlate, that we don't store, that we don't memorize. 2, 3, 4 days after the election, maybe it was the first week in the House of Assembly, a statement was made by I think it was Peter Turnquist, that the PLP had added 6,500 jobs prior to election. I think, because I don't want to be like them, I don't want to be wrong, I think it was Mr. Davis who said, that's inaccurate.
Yes, it was him.
I think it was, okay?
It was.
All right. See, we remember things. We're idiots, but we remember things. So, we even commented on the time that who are we supposed to believe? Someone is saying one thing, the other person is saying another thing. How are we gonna decipher this stuff? So we leave it alone. Then 3 months later comes up, employment dips. Okay? Now, then the very people who are saying that, hey, we didn't hire 6,500 more people, are saying, oh, but it's due to us. We take credit for that. Phil, help me out, man. But tell me, see, I always think I'm the nut. I go on the premise that I'm the nut. So I want to say, help me to see what am I not seeing.
Maybe we forgot.
What am I not seeing? That's what I'm asking you. Use right things. You see a lot of things. Tell me what I see.
Well, Ed, I don't think you're not a nut, and most of the Bahamian people are nuts. Most of the Bahamian people see things for what they are. They see the reality. They recognize that any political party, whether it's the PLP, FNM, DNA, whoever it is, in the run-up to elections are going to hire people to try to give them jobs. And, for anybody to suggest, and I'm not going to call any names, that there's a vindication of the PLP's efforts, I think it shows or demonstrates that the person clearly doesn't understand, one, what happened just before the elections, and that is that a lot of people were hired, many of whom are no longer hired.
Right.
And so the real indication,
might change.
The real indication, the real vindication will come in 6 months down the road when we see what the real numbers are. And that is really what we have to wait for. But, I was saying to someone today that it's really unfortunate that we have to wait 3, 4, 5 months before to get statistics when you get a monthly. The first Friday of every month, the U.S. Labor Board of Statistics puts out the jobs that have been created in the economy. The National Insurance Board keeps a record of how many new jobs there are, how many new businesses there are.
Why do we do that?
We do it because we want to collect the information, but we don't share the information.
No, I mean, why would we wait 3 months? That's what I'm saying.
Why we do it?
Is there a rule?
Well, no, there's no rule. It's just that's what has become customary. That's what's become the habit. And, there haven't been enough people saying to the political directorate that we really should have more timely information, reliably informed information, so that we can make a determination as to whether or not you are really a nuthead.
Hold on a second, man. Time out. You know why he told me I have good cufflinks? I just see these things, man. You have the same cufflinks.
Oh, does he?
I thought he was giving me a little compliment.
I was complimenting you.
Exactly.
I was complimenting you.
No wonder.
Okay.
So you agree with me? You're not a nut. You're not a nut.
I'm not a nut. Yeah. No, but you know what? I'll tell you something. You begin to feel a little unsure of yourself, and let me say it like this. I mean, look, we're versed, right? We study this stuff. But you know what? It's hard to function in a society, any society, where someone will just tell you the water is oil. Because why would you say that? I have to be missing. Two normal human beings don't act that way.
Well, Ed, there was a president, a United States president, who had an idiom, trust but verify. Trust but verify.
Right.
In other words, you may want to trust the people who give you the information, but verify.
Right.
In other words, go back to another source. Go back to the original source data. Go back to the authority that provides the information, and rely on those persons to give you the accurate information. For example, Central Bank of the Bahamas is a very reliable source of information. If they say something and a politician says something, who am I going to believe? I'm going to trust the Central Bank of the Bahamas.
But Phil, why do we exist? I mean, Donald Trump is epitomizing it. Lies. Why is it? I understand. Listen, when you get into highly technical stuff about this, the Congressional Budget Office did this, and that's highly technical stuff. Okay, I'm saying, like, Phil, this bottle contains water.
It's not oil.
And you say it contains oil. Rogan's contains water. We got the same stuff. It's clear. But yet you're telling Ken, no, that's oil. Well, we're basic. We understand that's water. Why would you say that? Why would you say something that will be disproved unless you're a nut.
Well, I think, quite frankly, politicians tend to be very defensive. If someone on the opposite side says something that's offensive or that makes them look bad, then they're going to automatically, with a knee-jerk reaction, respond to it and not think first and think it through and say, let me listen to what he said and let me go and ask for the evidence. Or if a person says something, say to them, bring the evidence. Yeah. Show me what you're saying. Show me what you're saying is accurate. Right. But if you, in a knee-jerk reaction, just respond, no, that's not the case, then quite often you're going to be proven wrong because you are operating from a position of ignorance.
Why don't just say nothing? Say nothing because I expect more out of a seasoned politician. If you know that you, for example, added 6,500 jobs and it's not something that you're proud of, say nothing and then later, let it slide. Just let it die off. But once you add fuel to the fire now and you come refuting it, and then you months later come and say, hey, we're going to take credit for it?
I think it's more insidious than that. You know what it is? Unfortunately, in the tribal world, and this is why you see what we were talking about with Trump, right? There are people who are not really interested in anything Rogan Smith has to say. They're interested in everything Ken has to say because why? It feeds the narrative of being against you.
I agree.
And in the political world, it's like teams. You just need enough people on your team to so when you around them, you can be bolstered and all that sort of thing. They know that they could say anything. It's like Hitler. Hitler can say, the Jews are responsible for everything. Enough people want to believe that they buy into it to the disaster and the human
detriment of 6 million
human
people.
Crap, that just happened. I mean, that's where it goes.
That reflects poorly on me then if I'm supporting someone who doesn't even think that I have a brain enough to assess certain situations that I'll just accept anything that he or she says.
Then that person is not necessarily. They're so prejudiced and they're filled with so much hate. It's not that they're buying what you're saying.
How can that take over?
It's crazy. I know, but that's what happens in this world where there's enough of a base where you're only really speaking to them.
And that's a sad situation.
And that's what I think is more sad. Like
there is I think you mentioned a word, Ed, that makes a lot of sense that really applies in this situation, and that's tribalism. Our politics has become so tribalistic. You either belong to the tribe of the PLP or the tribe of the FNM, and no matter what the PLP says, the FNM is going to say it's bad, and vice versa.
Right.
And so we develop this tribal mentality, and then begin to
detriment.
Accept everything that one party, one tribe says over the other, without really seriously, systematically, methodically examining whether or not there's truth in it, whether there's water or oil in this water.
How is it that you haven't fallen victim to that, Mr. Galanis?
Well, I think there are a lot of people who haven't fallen victim to that. I think I'm perhaps one of the more vocal ones. But I think that I speak to PLPs all the time, and they say essentially the same thing I do. In fact, many of them say, "Man, listen, keep it up, keep the pressure on, because we need change." And so I think that we don't really credit as many people as we should for having the brains in the PLP that we should. I mean, there are people in the PLP who want change, who want reform, who want to see the order changed and move into a whole new different realm.
But what are they afraid of? Let's say if Phil Galanis is out there taking the risk, right? And I say that, taking the risk, because there's risk involved, right? So you take the risk, you're vocal. For them to essentially support your point of view is less risky, because they don't have to put themselves out there.
Right.
So why doesn't that happen?
I think it probably stems from our political culture.
And by the way, when I was talking PLP, it's on both sides.
Yeah, I know. But I believe it stems from the fact that in our political culture has developed in an aura of victimization and retaliation of persons who speak against,
or at least the fear of it.
Or the fear of it.
Right.
And sometimes the fear of it is worse than what actually exists. Right. There's never been anybody, quite frankly, who has told me, listen, you should shut up and stop saying what you say. Yeah. In fact, to the contrary, people stop me in the food store, at the gas station, on the line of the theater. Everywhere I go, people say, man, listen, at the airport, listen, I want to encourage you to continue saying the things that you're saying, because it's only by doing the things that you say that we need to do that we're going to see change take place in our party and in the political environment generally. And so, I don't feel there's any risk. For me, right. Coming out of a out of a church, the Catholic Church, which had placed a very high priority and premium on social activity, and being able to make a difference in people's lives is something that is in my bones, is in my DNA. And so if I see something wrong, I'm going to speak up against it. I really don't care who's doing it, what's wrong. It could be anyone. I'm going to say, listen, I don't think this is right. And so that is really what guides me. I want to see the improvement of this country generally. Yeah. I want to see the all ships raised.
Right. When We the People was being formed many years ago, and of course it's now defunct. One of the premises we used to use all the time is we'd say, one party could say to the population, I have managed to secure a bar of gold for everyone. Oh, I remember. And the immediate reaction from the opposition would be, the gold's contaminated. And you could bring in all the experts in the world, the gemologists, the metallurgists, all the ologists on the planet, to disprove that, and then the response would be, yeah, but he on their payroll. You cannot, and so you would deny a benefit to yourself simply because it's the other side. And the reason I bring that example, it may seem like a trite example, but I think you may have even said something to the effect in one of your columns that we have, or we may have discussed it here, that we have essentially thwarted our progression because of this lunacy that we call tribalism, this protectionism, this bohemianism, simply because we don't want to open up to the reality that there's certain things we need or we don't need or we need the expertise of. Do you see, and I'm not trying to be political here, but do you see, because you referred to it, that with the kind of change of the old guard, so to speak, and with Mr. Minister's seemingly kind of almost your attitude in a way, don't care, that there's a potential that we could pivot toward going in the opposite direction?
I believe that we are on the road to pivoting. I don't think we've pivoted yet. I think we're on the road to pivoting. And I say that because, one, the elections of May 10th were historic for more than one reason. And I've written about this. I've written quite a bit about this. But one of the things that happened is that there were a lot of persons who historically were PLPs who voted against the PLP. And you didn't see that before. Yeah. You're not in the numbers that we saw before. Okay. They would stay at home, but and some stayed at home. But you saw an overwhelming number of persons, and not only that, the survey that was conducted after the elections indicated clearly. Well, two things that were interesting. One, the survey of the morning, the exit surveys of the poll on election day, exit surveys as people were leaving the polls, conducted by Cable Bahamas, indicated that 20% of the people made up their mind on the day of election.
I remember that.
Okay, that was really very astounding. I was one of those people. Very astounding. I was one of those persons. I'm a PLP. I'm a PLP, but I had strong feelings about whether or not I voted PLP. I'm not going to make. But I made up my mind on election day.
You voted FNM?
I'm not going to say what I voted.
All right, but let me ask you a question.
What would have been
the reason I asked you that? Not only I was trying to figure out what at the moment made you decide whatever you decided. That's what I was,
I had to weigh a lot of things. Okay. And that's the extent to what I could say. I just had to weigh a lot of things. And that's what I made my decision on. I've always said that I vote candidate, but I had to weigh some things that day.
And so the two statistics that I wanted to refer to, one is the exit poll, the 20% who decided on election day. And the second was an interesting poll that was done by the public, a huge percentage, public domain, was that 57% of the people who voted for the FNM indicated that they didn't really vote for the FNM.
Well, no,
it's
against the PLP.
It's against the PLP.
We have that against incumbency.
And so what I'm saying essentially, Ed, is this: we are on the road to pivoting. We haven't quite pivoted yet. We'll get moving in that direction. I think the young generation is going to make that make that leap, because nowadays you find, and I spoke to very strong, long-term PLPs whose kids decided that they were going to vote against the PLP this time. They said they could not vote for the PLP, and so we're pivoting. And I think that's good. That is good. That is good for the country.
We got to take a break. We're going to be right back. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith. The 800-pound, well, no, let me rephrase that before I refer to you. We have, I know, right? I will give them it could be me or you. Don't worry about that. Or it could be Ken. He's probably like 750. Phil Galanis is our guest this afternoon. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is this issue of corruption. Now, there are a couple of facets that we want to discuss, but one of the things, you talk about the pivot, let's segue from there, is that at the very minimum, the fear of going down Bank Lane should at least stem whatever was happening. I'm not going to label it. Whatever was happening before, the fear of going through that, and we can discuss what that is, should put a kind of a screeching halt. Do you agree or not agree?
I agree. I think I have to say, credit has to be given to the Prime Minister for at least addressing the issue in a very positive way. I mean, I may disagree with the antics. I may disagree with the details. I may disagree with the methodology. I may disagree with how things are done. But at least I think what he's trying to do is to change the political culture in a way that people have to recognize, and they will recognize.
And it may have to be extreme.
And it may have to be extreme, and they will recognize that, listen, there is a price to be paid if there is corruption suspected in my behavior in public office. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And let's face it, before we get into some of those details, right? The process that we're querying here is certainly not like the process in a lot of other countries where governments change and there's malfeasance where they caught you off, you don't even know where you're gone to. Okay? We're going through the legal system here. We can question how our legal system works and how it should be administered and blah, blah, blah. Right. But I saw just today, I don't know if it's true, so I don't want to speak to it because I didn't verify that. I heard where there was someone being charged today at a different level. It wasn't at a political ministerial level. It was at a public servant level. Again, these things are... and listen, I think we need to just get off this high horse and let's face it. This stuff is going down, has been going down. Oh, yes. Okay? Now, whether the persons who are being, targeted are the right ones, it's irrelevant. Well, it is relevant because justice has to be served. But it's going down. The question is how deep does it go? I think there will be some issues there will be some concerns wiped off the table when it hits someone who is seen to be of an F&M ilk.
Yeah.
And certainly, I assume that will happen in due course. Well, it's just that the way this is it. This is the F&M regime, and so these are the things that are coming forward because people are probably pimping. We use that word on people who were in power in the last 3-5 years.
And I think what needs to happen is that this cannot be an event that takes place when governments change. You need to have it needs to be ongoing. You need to have some institutions established, like an integrity commission or something similar to that.
Whistleblower Act.
That will have the authority to investigate anybody who is reasonably suspected, and for whom evidence can be brought against them that they are engaged in either misfeasance or malfeasance. And it's whether it's a public servant or whether it's a politician, it doesn't really matter.
Does the audit isn't in theory the internal auditor, which is the Auditor General, who's supposed to be independent, and we saw some of his independence even prior to the election. Shouldn't he be one of the main instruments where he's finding this stuff out and then able to bring in an investigative body to investigate if there's criminal activity or not?
Well, constitutionally, the Office of the Auditor General ought to be a very powerful office, but I don't think any government, successive governments have not given it the kind of resources that it really needs, because I don't think successive governments really want them to do their job efficiently. I have a tremendous amount of regard for this Auditor General because he has done some things and said some things despite the criticism that he's gotten from people in my party while he was trying to do his job, and I've come to his defense. self-defense, because I think you should not be attacking your Auditor General. He is really the person.
These are the institutions you need.
Exactly, and they need to be strengthened. They need to be bolstered. They need to be resourced, and they haven't been either. Any of those things, none of those things have happened. And so I'm hoping that if, in fact, the government is serious about getting rid of corruption, if the government is serious about weeding out corruption in the public service, which is where that's the mandate of the Auditor General, then you'll see more money being allocated to his office
And these are
and more
things that
resources.
citizens should be agitating for.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think, listen, this is a small country. All of the commentary, all of the people who are impacted, we all know. We all know. There's not a single person in this room, for instance, who's not touched by one or two of these people. Not a single one. And we consider them our friends, our family, and we empathize and sympathize with what they're going through. But let's talk now about this capacity, or this. Let me. That's not the word I want to use. The rush to defense, either by condemning a methodology, or by outright, like in the case of the chairman, just thinking it's nonsense when we know that's not the case. There's a lot of criticism of people who we know very well. We've had them both on this show. About their statements with regard to the manner in which folks were led through the courts. In the United States of America, the logistics would dictate that a bus would come from somewhere, would pull up next to the courthouse. Persons would go into a holding cell in the courthouse, and then they would come out through a door in the court to the table where they, and so there wouldn't be any walking. They don't walk from somewhere. Here, logistics and bad planning doesn't facilitate that. Now, having said that, it doesn't facilitate that for anyone.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
We should be wholesale criticizing the process,
for everybody.
not because
It
an
happens to this
individual
person.
has to have this process. Is that a simple agreement that everyone can
No,
look at?
I think there's general agreement of that. I mean, firstly, it's equally offensive to see young black men who cannot defend themselves, who don't have the capacity and the financial wherewithal to defend
Every day on the
themselves.
news.
Every day being engaged in what we call the bank lane shuffle.
Right.
I think it's very,
the fact
very
that we have a
offensive.
name for it is
Exactly.
terrible.
That's offensive.
Yeah.
And maybe because some people who are highly placed have been victim of this same system, it will cause the government to reassess
Agreed.
how we go about
Doing this.
Because if a person in fact is intended, if they're presumed to be innocent until proven guilty,
Same thing
you
I
shouldn't
said
treat
last
them.
show.
You shouldn't treat them as if they're guilty.
It's the same thing I
You
said.
see?
Well, but I mean, any system in the
and that's
States
anyone.
requires that you're handcuffed, right? But it's how you go
the
about the
treatment.
process.
It is how you go about it, and it depends on it. The point is that you want to make sure that the person doesn't have the opportunity to flee.
Right.
But I'll tell
Okay,
you,
I mean, I'm not sure that is putting your hands behind your back, cuffing you behind your back is any more effective than cuffing them in front of you.
or for that matter, if they're endangering society or whatever.
Exactly.
But here's what's interesting. To show you, and again, there's so many things that operate on this level. Our disdain for our average citizen, and it goes right down to parking at parking lots in government buildings, where every damn parking spot that's close to the building has some initial on it. And the parking spot for visitors is way to the back, maybe even in a track road somewhere, in a dirt patch. Okay? Disdain for the average citizen. When these courts were being designed, you know what they weren't thinking of? They weren't thinking that guy was going to ever be arraigned. Okay? They weren't thinking about how he feels, because he's not going to be impacted.
Right.
And so they weren't thinking about how the average Joe feels, because they don't care. He means nothing.
Not the average Joe.
But here's the deal. It's called citizen. It's called innocent until proven guilty. Citizen.
It's also called humanity. I mean,
Humanity.
Being humane and compassionate to persons who are adversely impacted by possibly going against the law, possibly.
Right.
Okay, and you don't know until they actually
Any
prove it.
human.
Yeah, anyone at all ought not to be subject to that kind of behavior and pillory, that kind of public embarrassment. I think that's offensive. Okay, for anyone.
We'll find now the next step will be is if someone has to go to jail, all of a sudden it's inhumane that they don't have proper toilets.
Yeah, but that's been the case for years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. We've got to get, and then we wonder why we nurture anger and criminality. Okay? Anyone who's been in that system is going to be angry.
Very angry.
Yep.
But I have a question for Mr. Galanis, just to switch gears. I know the PLP convention is slated for October 22nd. We were talking on the break, and you said in your column you didn't feel, or you espoused the fact that you didn't feel individuals who lost their seat in the last general election should offer for leadership roles inside the party. And so how do you see things playing out when October rolls around? And do you have somebody that you believe is a favorite to lead the party?
Well, I believe that what's going to actually happen is that Mr. Brave Davis will continue to be the leader of the party. I think he's probably the best suited to do so.
Mr. who?
Phil Davis.
Davis.
Phil Brave Davis. Okay. I think he's probably the best person. I think the person ought to be in Parliament. That's the first thing.
Okay.
He ought to be someone who has experience. Mr. Davis has both of those, I think, more than anyone else in the party. And I think he has the support generally of a wide cross-section of persons. And he is a different kind of politician than we've seen from the others who've led the PLP.
How so?
Different in the sense that I believe he's prepared to listen to a larger number of persons and act on advice that he's been given, and that's from personal experience. Okay.
What role do you see Mr. Cooper playing in?
I see Mr. Cooper playing the role either as a deputy leader, or just waiting his time for a while to learn politics, to learn the party, to understand where he to concretize his relationship with his constituents in Exuma. I would see him as a second alternative for deputy leader. I'd like to see Mr. Alfred Sayers, quite frankly, as a deputy leader, and I think that sends a message that there's change coming. Okay, I'd like to see a young Bahamian man or woman who understands the PLP to offer for chairman. Okay, but the point I made earlier in my column, today, is that I believe that if in fact the party is serious about putting its best foot forward, it has to recognize that we need to do essentially what Mr. Christie did between 1997 and 2002, and that is to create a whole new PLP,
right,
a new leadership structure. Okay, because until we do that, and unless we do that, the Bahamian people are going to say, you're going to be bringing us the same old people again. You know what?
Right.
We're going to reject you again, and we'll have 1997 all over again.
But aren't we, in essence? I mean, I understand the point about Mr. Davis having the experience, but aren't we again bringing the old guard back?
Well,
if they do elect him as
the thing
leader?
about it is that you need experience. I mean, you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater, in my opinion. I think, firstly, the first condition I've stated is that you've got to be in Parliament. You've got to be an elected member. You've got to be an elected member of Parliament. Yeah. Mr. Sayers is not an elected member of Parliament.
I know. That's what I was about to say.
Glenys Hannah Martin is an elected member of Parliament. I don't think she would have the general support. Okay. I think Mr. Davis has a greater handle on and a feel and a sense of what the party needs and where it needs to go. And, I also believe that he is one who's not going to be intimidated by persons who may challenge him. And I'm not saying, and I want to make this very clear, I'm not saying that if he goes in and he wins in October that he's the person who's going to take us to the elections in 2022. I think we're a long way away from that. But in the short term, we need to stabilize.
Okay.
We need to stabilize, and then we need to put in place some mechanisms to ensure that the things that threw us off course are done away with, replaced, that we reformat, redesign, re-engineer the party in a way that's going to become attractive to more people.
Mr. Roberts says that he will not be offering for chairman.
That's right.
Have you identified somebody who you think would take on that role?
I have not identified anyone. I'm sure there are people who would like to take on that role. My personal preference would be that Alfred Sayers would be the chairman of the party. That's my personal preference because I think he will be a very effective chairman. I think he ought not run for leader. That's my view because he's not in Parliament. I think he'd be a good deputy, as I said before, but in the absence of wishing to be a deputy, I think he'd be a very effective chairman. I think it'd be good if you could find a woman who is very strong, who understands, who's grown up in the PLP, who understands the core values of the PLP, who will be able to cater to a very vast constituency, the female constituency, but young and aggressive and articulate, and who will understand that as a spokesman for the PLP, she's not there to criticize the government at every turn. Yes, criticize when you must, but really articulate.
Maybe you need to seek out
This is why the question I was going to ask is, and it kind of piggybacks on what you just said, is we also need at this stage in our political development, to clearly define ideology.
Absolutely.
Okay, philosophy. Okay, we've been too long focused on he's a PLP, she's a FNM, he's a no good FNM, he's a no good PLP. That's the philosophy we got going on. We need to define what is the philosophical plan for each party, and obviously one should. The PLP is in a position to do so, and put themselves in a presentationally attractive position for people, and to say, okay, I can buy into that philosophy, which would then, of course, force the other party to define its philosophy, so that people like the Rogan Smiths who want to vote for ideas and candidates can understand these differences.
That's right, yeah. If you go back to the original platform of the PLP that was printed in the Tribune, I forget which year it was. I don't want to say the wrong year. I think it was 1962. Maybe it was earlier than that. I did a column on this several years ago. You will see that many of the fundamental principles and core values of the PLP that obtained then still apply now. The time has changed. We've entered a whole new millennium, but the needs of the people are still the same. Good health care, good education, the basic things are there. And we need to revisit that, redefine it, redesign it, and make it relevant to the 21st century Bahamas.
I want to see the PLP bring more aggressive, intelligent women into the fold as well.
I agree.
As a voter, that's what appeals to me.
I agree. And we have
we have
some very young, intelligent, aggressive women. We have some brilliant women. Unfortunately, many of them have been overshadowed by those who left office, and that's why I say they should stay back, stand back, and let the young guard come forward.
Party needs to listen, man.
Listen, we got to go. Phil, thank you for coming by. I hope we can get to a point one day where people can sit and say, you know what, I recognize that the FNM is a party that looks at how we can develop business for economic sake. The PLP can say, okay, we can develop social safety nets. So whoever it is. I mean, there may be different things for different times, but we get to make that decision as an electorate.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming by. We'll have you again, I'm sure, if you don't mind coming on.
Anytime.
Because I'm sure there'll be more fodder. Okay? So we'll see you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
I think, speaking of economics, I think Mr. Peter Turnquist is going to be on Thursday.
Okay, great.
So we'll talk with the
Really
Deputy
good.
Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. So we'll see you on Thursday.